Good day, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you may be in this big world. Welcome to Juve therapy session. At least here in Norway, it is Friday night, and with me today I have Daniel from the West Coast, I believe, of this world. If you you say you're based in
East Coast of US, yeah, West Coast of the world.
Yeah, indeed. Welcome, guys, and welcome to all of you to the chat. We'll try to digest whatever happened. Not only this Tuesday, but also the whole season, and we'll try to look forward. Try to look ahead into what may very well be a trophyless season. Maybe it will not be a trophyless. We'll see. And I see already that you have some fans already, Daniel. You have a nice kit. Please tell me a little bit about that kit.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is, I think this is the very last kit that was worn without names, but just numbers on the back. I don't know if I can show you the back, but I guess Adam can guess which number I have on this on the back of this shirt. But this was the jersey that it was the last year that they had UPIM. And if you can read it, as the sponsor, they shortly after switched to, I believe, Denon as the as the sponsor, and this was a very iconic jersey because, of course, Kappa, but also one of the greatest jerseys that Juve, I believe, ever produced. There are very few differences between I think jerseys 2 or 3 years before. I don't want to give away the year that this was put out. 2 or 3 years before and after, except I mean the patch and the sponsor, but they look very much the same. Produced by the same athletic sponsor, Kappa. But then they changed the commercial sponsor in the front. I don't know if Adam has guessed. Do you have a guess which number is on the back? Again, this is the one. Yes. Mark, I think Mark got it right. Yeah, it's Tempo Baggio. It's very iconic. I wish I could turn around. I don't know if it would be polite to turn my back to
that's
your
okay.
guests.
That's okay.
Yeah.
There we go. That is beautiful. That is old school, my friend.
Yeah, it's the block numbers as well. So they tried to create the 3D effect with the number. But yeah,
that's beautiful. Of course, you can see on that jersey. There is no Scudetto patch, but there is a Coppa Italia badge.
Yeah, it's one of the it's I think it's 1993 that they won the Scudetto after Coppa Italia after a really long time.
Mm-hmm. Well, there we go. All right, hi guys, and all of you into the chat. We have Colin there. Nice to see you, Colin. Of course, Colin was me the last Friday. Mark, who of course guessed correctly, and also Adam, you also guessed correctly. You also said 10. So there we go. And Marco is happy to see Daniel. So we're off to a good start. We are positive now so far.
Glad to be here.
Good. But let's just crush this down to the negatives and maybe a bit realistic. Let's start off easy. What happened on Tuesday?
I was wrong. That's what happened on Tuesday.
Well, everybody was wrong.
I predicted a 3-1 because very obvious. It was very clear that we could not keep a clean sheet against teams that play the way that Porto played. But at the same time, I had this throughout the season. I had this feeling that this is a different Juve of later years Allegri and second half of Sarri's reign, in that they can score at any moment. It's not like there were, I don't know if you remember, but there were games, especially last year of Allegri, that you would watch the team and we were not necessarily down, but you could tell that we're not going to score. Like it was just a series of side passes and trying to play it on the flanks, and then send a long ball in and hope for the best. Whereas this team had essentially everything. Like I was not. So I think I actually kept a tally of how many games we went without scoring from a dead ball, and Adrien Rabiot broke that record. So we did score, and we got scored on. I was just not expecting the kick to the gut. That was the 115th minute goal.
Yeah, that was tough.
It was
indeed. But let's get into this a bit more specific, because we've conceded like 4 goals against Porto, and fans say that all those 4 goals are very avoidable. There are personal, individual mistakes, and because of those individual mistakes, we were unfortunately eliminated. But do you feel that's only that we actually played good football? Because there is also talk about it doesn't really matter that we conceded 4 goals, individual mistakes, but also the fact that we never recovered once we conceded.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, we had probably our worst game of the season in the first part of this tie. Like we just simply didn't show up, and had it not been for that magical shot by Chiesa, we would have been out of this much sooner. And it's kind of a recurrent theme of this team. Like we lost 2-0 at home against a Barca that was severely depleted. Now, granted, we went and kicked their butts in Camp Nou, or we lost 2-0 against an Inter that had literally one game plan, just one way of playing, and we still couldn't stop them in the first game. That would actually, I'd argue, was more crucial for the season objectives. And then went and across 2 games stopped them from playing their own game and advancing to the Coppa Italia final. This is in a way it's I know it sounds crazy, but it's a positive thing, because it's not a personal problem, meaning that it's not like 2017 where we didn't really have a second decent midfielder. Like back in the day, there were many people were saying, yes, Juventus is having an incredible run in the Champions League, but the double pivot is built on the magic of Pjanic and hoping that Khedira would show up. It's not a tactical problem, because we've seen that Juventus being exposed for the tactical deficiencies throughout the season have been able to correct it. Like the first real loss of the season against Fiorentina. Now it came under very special circumstances. Like Juventus went down 10 men. They were really playing poorly, but most of those tactical problems was quickly fixed. If you remember, after that, we went on a run of, I think, 8 or 9 wins. So it's not something that, this is way above the pay grade of Pirlo and he can't implement a good plan for the game. I think I think the main reason is just this team being very young and haven't played with each other for even months, let alone years that is sometimes required for teams to perform. If you think about the players in the middle, we lost Pjanic. We didn't have Arthur for I think, good part of the season so far. Or if we had him, we didn't start him. And then the only constant was essentially Betancourt. And if you look at the flanks, I know Cuadrado's stats look kind of outperforming a lot of other players, but it's only because we had no one else. That was the only avenue of creativity for a lot of games. We were using Chiesa and at times Kulusevski just to use the flank. So, and you can see it. You go back and watch the games in the first part of the season and look at how really nice, fluid football breaks down at the last pass, simply because Rabiot doesn't know what Kulusevski does, or Chiesa cannot expect what Sandro is supposed to do. So I know it's very frustrating, but at the same time, you look at this and you tell yourself, my gosh, if this team gels together, they can really produce. So I mean, it was very, very frustrating to see Juventus go out again in the round of 16, because I was really while I was very realistic about our targets for the Champions League this season, but I figured that maybe at least we will get to the quarterfinals to be counted as the top European teams for this season. But if you look at it long term, it feels very much that this team is on an upward trajectory.
Do you think Andrea Pirlo is the right manager to gel this team then?
That's a very good question. Well, I don't think anyone knows. I don't think even Pirlo knows that. And it's simply because we have zero track record of Pirlo coaching anyone else. And then we have a team that hasn't really played this kind of football, or hasn't played together for that matter. Even our backline that is famous across Europe for stability and being a wall, and it was kind of a very popular trope for journalists to rave on about a Juventus, specifically under Allegri, that would score a goal and just sit back for 70 minutes. And you knew that absent very top tier teams in Europe, no one can break this backline. That's gone. That's gone. Like we played. First of all, we played a very variable backline this year. So
sorry, what do you mean? It's gone. Do you mean the mentality is gone, or do you mean basically?
No. Personnel is gone. Okay. We have to be very realistic. I think personally, I thought that Chiellini should have retired last year. I think Bonucci is a lot less of a consistent player than last year. And while I think Matthijs de Ligt is a generational player, I don't think he himself can carry the entire backline. And these all would weigh on the outlook of what's supposed to happen. What would be the outcome of this massive transition? Juventus is changing in so many aspects. Now you can agree or disagree with some of these strategies of how we should change, or is this change necessary? But it's undeniable that from a Mercado standpoint, from a football philosophy, from players that we choose, from our approach to youngsters, like everything is changing. Pirlo might be the coach that would usher in the new era, or he could be not that person. But I think even if he leaves, I don't think he's going to leave this season. I don't think anything extra would happen absent something extraordinary. But even if he's not that person, I really realistically don't see us sacking him and go back to, I don't know, Allegri. This is again more of a Pirlo loves to talk about there are roles in football, not positions. Like I can play Bernardeschi as a left back if I want to. So as long as he understands the role, he should be able to perform. And I think it's somewhat true for his role as well. Like it's not solely about Pirlo. Like if he can do what we want him to do, then he stays. If not, then another. Again, I think we're going for a profile, a young coach, full of new ideas, hyper-attacking football with. This is Italy at the end of the day. Appreciation for defense, but not solely focused on it.
There's a question for you, Daniel, specifically from Aditya. Between Rabiot and Bentancur, who would you sell if that choice would have been given to you? Or it's okay if you want to keep both. I mean.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say I'll keep both. I think I'm in the minority that think in thinking that Rabiot and Bentancur are full of potential, and Bentancur played an exceptional season last year, and he was in double digits in the number of assists. And he played the most minutes, if I'm not mistaken, last year. And then he essentially went no break, no preseason, straight back to the starting lineup just because we didn't have anyone to rely on. So I think part of his dip in form can be attributed to that. He's only 23. And not a lot of players in the world can count on that. And then for Rabiot, I think he is a very special kind of midfielder. He is one of those rare breed of midfielders who can dribble, but are also exceptionally physical. Go and watch his goal. I know that he was not marked for the header, but look at the power that he can put behind the ball. He's just it's very rare to have that amount of physicality combined with technique. For example, Arthur compensates for the fact that he is short by using his technique to hide that. But Bentancur doesn't. Rabiot doesn't need to do that. He can use his physicality, like when he starts running, especially if he finds an open channel. Those tall legs just outpaces much of their defense. Yeah. So I think I would keep both. But if I had to absolutely let go of one of them, and I don't think you should, I would probably let go of Rabiot, and mostly because Bentancur is 23, played more for Juventus, and potentially has higher upside.
Jeffrey says a little bit about Aaron Ramsey here. He should be sold. Rabiot and Bentancur will eventually come good for Juve, but I cannot see a future for Ramsey. There are talks of Aaron Ramsey leaving Juve at the end of this season. Whether that will happen remains to be seen, of course, and then also the matter of wages, quite high for Ramsey, and if we are going to sell him, we're going to need something in return, hopefully some cash. Do you want him for Juve next season, or you think that if there is one midfielder you should get rid of, this is the one?
No, I agree with Jeffrey. I think Ramsey should be sold. Now the question is, with this is going to be a very interesting mercado. Not a lot of teams have money, cash. I think that just today there was this sports journalist who was is a Spanish sports journalist who was dropping the bombshell, and the bombshell was, and there's like all this like kind of ridiculous tweets of like stay tuned in 4 hours will reveal a very bombshell thing with regards to Messi and Barcelona. And the bombshell was, PSG has the funds available should they decide to buy. Not buy, because it's like breaking news. I'm like, they're connected to endless oil money, so they can buy, they can finance, because it technically won't be a buy as far as I know, because Messi only has a 1-year contract, so he could go for a free. It's just that similar to Cristiano Ronaldo, you need to kind of have the resources to pay him, because his wages, I don't know if you are familiar, but there was a leak a few months ago that showed that Barcelona paid for the past 4 years something quite extraordinary. I think it was €500 million, so it's like $600 million in wages and bonuses and everything else to keep Messi. So this is not going to be the case. I would be very surprised if anyone can muster north of 60 million this season. Anyone. There's just no money.
So let's talk about Cristiano for a second, since you are kind of diverting to Cristiano. There are a lot of people, and a bit more specific again, we're talking about the Porto tie, of course, Mr. Champions League. Well, let's face it, he failed in both ties and in both games, and a lot of fans are calling for his head now. He needs to leave. We need to rebuild this season. We have enough of this. He destroys the chemistry. We can use this money elsewhere. I know for a fact you said though last time that
I was on record. Yes.
Yes.
That I would ask his.
You would actually renew his contract.
Yeah.
Do you, however, try to be? Let's play a bit of objective here. Do you understand the frustration and to why the reasons are for those fans? They must basically that he needs to leave, or just simply Cristiano has to stay. I don't know.
No. Oh, absolutely, 100%. In honesty, I should admit that I was wrong. But in my defense, we did not have the sample size of 2 games in Champions League for Mr. Champions League. He's still an exceptional player. There are probably not that many. You can probably count on one hand the number of players who can just from not like just put the financial aspect aside, just from a sporting standpoint, can give you what he can provide. But he comes with a very specific set of requirements, and those requirements is the reason that I kind of feel that we should, if the opportunity presents itself, we should say goodbye to Ronaldo. Now, for context, we brought him in to ease this transition. Again, I do not believe that we brought him in to win us Champions League. That's just not how Champions League works. Now, he was part of the team that won 3 back-to-back Champions Leagues. But it was because he was surrounded by world-class players. Like, you remember the season that Marcelo had. You remember the midfield of Casemiro, Cruz, and Modric. And even, Isco, who was even not a starter, was just tearing apart Champions League.
Benzema.
And Karim Benzema is just a prolific striker. Is one of the few complete number 9s in the world of football. You simply don't have a comparable set of players. It was just a very exceptional circumstances, and it's very tough to keep that level of success in Champions League. Let alone going in and say, I want Mr. X to just do everything. I think I read somewhere, I can't remember, I think it was probably by Guido Baciago, who was saying that every player that Juventus buys is with the specific intent of winning the Champions League. It's not like, oh, let's buy this player for Coppa Italia, get these two for Scudetto, and then we'll buy this person for Champions League. No, it doesn't work like that. But I would argue that Ronaldo was part of this grand master plan of transitioning. So we wouldn't go without trophy for a couple of years while we changed the face of the team, like players that we had and the team members that we had. So they didn't. We would not risk a significant dip in the output. So he was definitely brought in for that, and he actually more than delivered. If you look at the number of he scored all of our goals in Champions League last year. Am I right? I think it was just him. Oh, in the knockout phases. I'm sorry, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So all the goals in the past 2 years in knockout phases was scored by Cristiano Ronaldo. So he is very much. Again, the Porto game is aside, but he scored all the goals in 2 successive knockout stages of Champions League. So that's a lot of. He scored. I can't remember his actual tally, but he's almost nearing a goal a game for Juventus. It's like 90 or 100.
20 goals in 21 games
this season. But even if you look at all the 3 seasons, 2.5 seasons that he's been with us, is averaging almost a goal a season.
That's exceptional.
That's just there are not that many players who can guarantee that. Remember, we paid over 90 million Higuain's release clause, and he didn't get close to that number.
Yep. Which brings me actually to another point. If we are gonna sell Cristiano, or if, as you say, an opportunity arises and he will be sold, we are also selling those goals. Who is going to replace Cristiano's goal scoring record, or basically who will score the goals for you, which is not easy in current state of the financial status in the world. And the people are talking about Haaland, but let's be fair, it's not even close. He's not. Why would he leave Bundesliga? Why would he go to Juve? Mino Raiola is his agent, and so on and so on. So this is what I have the problem with. If we're gonna sell Cristiano, my problem is that who is coming in to replace not Cristiano, but who's gonna score the goals if Cristiano isn't there?
Yeah, I mean that's I think that's it must be on the minds of the management when they think about this. Now, I would tell you why I still think I would consider if an offer arrives this summer, I would consider selling Cristiano Ronaldo. We saw Juventus. It was a very rare moment, but we saw Juventus performing without him against Lazio. And this is a very cynical team. This is a team that, according to many, actually holds probably the best midfield in Serie A at this moment. I guess it's them versus Inter in terms of the best midfield. But their midfield, I mean, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic and Luis Alberto, specifically Luis Alberto, he is just he's a conductor, and he knows how to manage a game. And we still saw the glimpses of a game without Ronaldo. The way that team moved without him, the way that team. When you add Ronaldo to the lineup, I mean, there's always this fans always moan about the fact that Sandro runs forward, and then the first thing comes into his mind is, where's Cristiano Ronaldo? You just want to pass the ball to him instead of thinking if there's an avenue for advancing, or should he put in a long cross. Everyone, or like us, you can see the same thing with Bernardeschi. When he plays there, same thing happens. So his presence. From a personal standpoint, causes other people's game to change, but also when you add him, you don't really have a left winger, right? He occupies that space. He refuses to play center forward, so you don't have a man in the box all the time. And you saw it how much it affected us when Morata wasn't playing. It was very clear how big of an issue it is. No matter how quick Chiesa is, or how much hustle Kulusevski is putting in. It just didn't work. So his presence kind of forces us to play in a certain way, and his absence in that I mean, I think he played from the 70th minute when we kind of dusted the game already, but in those 70 minutes, and we went down, right? We went down on a stupid counter, and we still managed to turn it around. We still managed to show up, and that was very encouraging. I want to see more of that. I think now that we're out of the Champions League and we have 13 games more to play, the Copa final and the league games, I would like to see Pirlo trying this more often to see if it actually works, because we would never know, right? This is the excellent opportunity. I think the chances of us winning the Scudetto is very slim. So why not use this chance and figure out if we can live without him? If we can survive, we can show the same output. I agree. He gives you he's guaranteed 30 goals a season. But let's see if we can do the same without him. I mean, it's not like we don't have goal scorers. We have Chiesa, we have Morata. So and hopefully we'll have Dybala. And those three alone should give you a lot. Just to give you an idea of what I'm thinking, think of a starting lineup of Kulusevski on the left, Chiesa on the right, Morata is the prima punta, and Dybala behind him. That's very exciting prospect, and I think you would get good output from them. Whereas if you try to add to this equation Cristiano, then this will never work. You have to put someone out, and more often than not, it's Dybala.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Daniel. Thank you for this. Dybala, you just mentioned Dybala real quick, and of course, I mentioned it also in my videos that last season he was the club's MVP, and this season he has been MIA. We haven't seen him at all.
Yeah.
And those games we've seen him, he was very, very average at best. Do you think that is also maybe a part of the reason as to why we look so adequate going forward?
Yeah,
because of course when Pirlo first joined, he thought of Dybala as being part of this team, but right now
and he says that. Yeah, he still says that he's counting on him. He wants him to come back because he thinks it's very important. I mean, listen, I know that a lot of people have their own criticisms of Dybala, but he played under 3 different coaches, and none of them said anything remotely. I mean, Allegri had to discipline him a couple of times, but they never said anything about his talent, right? I think it was the beginning of Sarri's reign, and there were all these talks about maybe Dybala should be sold for 70 million. And then they asked Sarri, and I remember he said, if I had 70 million, I would buy him for myself. So no one is doubting his talent. It's just that it's very unfortunate that he hasn't been able to recover. He just has been very. I'm sorry, my dog is trying to convince me that I should play with him instead of talking to you guys. He's very talented, and I think Cristiano Ronaldo's presence kind of affected his development as not as a player, but as our undisputed leader. They gave him the vice captaincy. He captained us for a lot of games. He scored over 100 goals for us. And when he's there, he's one of the rare breed of a very few players who can affect the game on their own. You can't say that about a lot of players. And I know that everyone would say, yes, Federico Chiesa is also of that mold, but he only played for half a season. Dybala has been doing it for 5 years. Remember his goal against Spurs that completed our comeback. Remember his 93rd minute goal at the Olimpico that pretty much sealed the Scudetto for us. Remember his assist to Higuain at the 93rd minute. I think it was his long ball that Higuain put in the Inter's net at San Siro that also kind of sealed the fate of the Scudetto. So he's one of those players that can make things happen, even though if you're playing awfully, even though if you're one man down, even though nothing is going right. And to be at the top, you need that kind of player. And Cristiano is that kind of player, but you can't field 11 Cristiano Ronaldo, Paulo Dybalas, right? You need someone to run, you need someone to cover, you need someone to be disciplined in terms of defensive work. So you can't have all of those players just trying to impress and break a defensive wall. And I think in that respect, presence of Ronaldo has affected him negatively. Everyone's dream was for Allegri to be able to figure out how to make Ronaldo and Dybala work, and he couldn't. Then Sarri came along, he couldn't. Pirlo hasn't got really the chance to play them together because of Dybala's injuries. But I think it would be very interesting to see if Juventus will try to just play fewer games with Ronaldo starting. Now, it's going to be a very difficult task because he wants to be the capocannoniere, and he would be very mad if he's not starting.
Let's talk about Alvaro Morata for a second, because this is a guy we brought in right at the end of the transfer window before the season. Started slowly, played very badly against Roma, but then started to find form and started actually scoring some goals.
Yeah.
And if I can find that comment further up here, let's see. There we go. CR7 Goat. I love the username, by the way. Morata stats this season: 31 games, 16 goals, 10 assists. It's actually quite okay. But is he the answer for the future at Juve in terms of goal scoring and in terms of being that prima punta? Or because as we know, we need to renew his loan after this season, and that will cost us 10 million euros.
Right.
If we're not doing this, we are sending him back to Atletico Madrid, but then we definitely need to find somebody else.
Yes.
Is there an alternative to Morata, or do we stick with him?
No, personally, I think Morata is a complete striker. I would put him in the same category as Benzema. I know to most people it sounds ridiculous because by the age of 28, Benzema has achieved much more. Now, remember, Morata also won the Champions League as not as a starter with Real Madrid, right before being sold to Chelsea. But I think he arrived at the right moment. And remember, his dip in form wasn't actually a dip in form. He was just not playing for us because of illness. It's not that he is people who weren't following him from a 2015-2016 season may not remember, but he had a really serious dip in performance to the point that he was benched. And he scored his last goal for us in his typical memorable fashion, giving us the Coppa Italia I think it was in the extra time, or maybe I think it was at the extra time. It's scoring against Milan.
It was.
Yeah, it was extra time, and he came on and scored. But this time around, I don't think he had. Now, he had a bad game. Let's be honest. I think he had a very poor game, much like Cristiano Ronaldo at the second leg of Porto's tie. He just didn't score. Like, he had really clear opportunities and he missed. But I think he's a complete striker. He's one of those strikers that have the physicality and speed. He can play excellently with his back to the goal, so he can hold up the ball for releasing Chiesa and Kulusevski, or at times Cristiano Ronaldo. His presence in the box is just monstrous. And he gets to most of the crosses and scores a lot of headers. But at the same time, he's very comfortable with both of his feet. Now he's more comfortable scoring with his right, but it doesn't negate the fact that he's scored, I think, if I remember correctly, this season with head, left, and right. So he's definitely a complete striker. And for 10 million, until even if you say no, I really want Haaland in Juventus in 2022, you can still get a year for 10 million. Tell me who else can we buy for 10 million that would come near closely to the output that Morata has.
That is a good point.
The only thing working against him is his age. He's a year older than Dybala, so he soon will turn 29. And while you really hope these kind of strikers go really to their 31, 32 years of age, again, he doesn't fit the philosophy, the new philosophy of Juventus. Look at the players that we bought. Kulusevski, 20 years old. Matthijs de Ligt, 20 years old. Federico Chiesa, 22. These are all players that we're buying for the next decade. And I honestly don't see Morata being able to play for 5 years at the top. So I guess that's the only downside of keeping Morata. And again, that's for probably 2 or 3 seasons. So you can get good 3 seasons out of him.
Okay. I see some, we have some comments in the chat to disagreeing with you regarding comparing him to Benzema. But
I said it sounds ridiculous because Benzema's output is just monstrous. But from a technical standpoint, what he offers is very similar to Benzema. The reason that he didn't succeed at Madrid was the presence of Benzema.
Well, there we go. All right. Let's look ahead for a second and to this Mercato coming up. Well, we're talking about midfield. Of course, we have Locatelli, Aouar, the same Pogba, rumors coming in. Of course, every time we are talking about Mercato, it's the same names over and over again. Do you think that would actually solve whatever we have as problems in just turning to Locatelli, who is a very similar player to Bentancur in terms of the position? So where do you play Bentancur? And I don't know if you've seen Locatelli play. And do you think, I saw that Aditya had a question further up regarding Locatelli as to would he fit into this side? And Aouar as well. Is he actually good enough? And is it what we need? I know you are a fan of Milinkovic-Savic and Luis Alberto. That would be interesting to see them both in at Juve. But I mean, these guys keep showing up every now and then. So I think maybe this will be most likely transfers if there will be anything.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to journalists who are close to Juventus, you keep hearing that Pirlo specifically asked for Locatelli. And it makes sense. He is, I have watched him play. I must admit, not as extensively as Bentancur, because I watch every single game that Juventus plays. And I've looked at I still actually delved into his statistics. He is a much more competent tackler. I think he averages about 2.5 tackles, which is just immense. So he, as you can imagine, he would contribute a lot more in breakup playing, the opponent's play, as opposed to building up from the back. So he's very similar to Bentancur with certain differences. One of them is his tackling ability. The other one is, I think his passing range is slightly better than Bentancur. But I don't know if he would be the answer. If I had to pick. Now, here's the thing. I don't think he would be as effective, or I should say as versatile as Bentancur. Because we can easily play Bentancur. Now, I know a lot of people would yell at me if I say we should play him as a regista, given what he did at the first leg at Porto. But honestly, I think that was just one once in a lifetime mistake. It's not that he's not known. I mean, anyone who says that he should be sold, I challenge them to find one or two similar mistakes. Right? If someone has a fundamental issue with their mentality or their style of play, you should be able to see it as a recurring problem. Right? He's not like that. And he was very specifically marked. I think Sergio Conceição said as much, that we knew that all the creativity, given Arthur's absence, will come from Bentancur. And we knew that we have to mark him and put him under pressure. And they did it from minute one. Now, Bentancur is much more versatile, that you can put him in a register role. You can put him either side of... If you need to play Locatelli, either side of Locatelli, and he can even play very competently as an attacking midfielder. So he does all those things really well. If I had to buy a player, first of all, I should say I would not have bought another midfielder this window. I think we have a much more urgent area for improvement, and that's defense. But if I had to buy, I would probably go for Hussam Aouar. Aouar actually it's impressive. I also looked at his statistics. He scored like 6 or 7 goals. Now this is in Ligue 1, so who knows what the same argument can be made for Locatelli, that yes, he's doing well at Sassuolo, but what would be his output when he's at Juventus? And all you need to look for is to see what Kulusevski did last year and what his output has been so far this year. It's just a massive step up, right? But I think I would probably get him because in my mind, he's a much better Ramsey, by a lot. He can score goals and he can make those penetrating runs into the box. And he's very technical. His profile is really very much robust in that he can dribble. He also tackles not as much, so his breakup play is not as effective as Locatelli. But then again, I think that task can be given to Rabiot or Bentancur. Again, I'm putting the hat of a management who is trying to weather the pandemic. We just don't have the same amount of cash to throw around. And if I had to pick one of the two, I would probably pick Aouar.
Pierre says we cannot have just 21-year-olds. You need more experienced players like Morata. He's also 28, not 33.
I don't think I said he's 33. I said
you said that
29.
20, yeah, something like that. 27, 28.
Yeah, and I think he would really do well until he's 32 or 33. I fully expect him from an athletic standpoint to be able to perform until that age.
Our problem in UEFA Champions League, not Serie A, is because the history reveals that. For example, Juve lost their 5 finals in the Champions League while they lost Serie A in those years. They won Serie A in those years. Even if we reach final, we can't win. Ask this, please. What is the question, actually? But it is just a statement, yes.
I wish there was a possibility of me putting one of those memes on. I think it was Mourinho's meme that says, "I prefer not to speak."
If I speak, I'm in trouble.
Yes, if I speak, I'm in trouble. I don't know. I mean, I don't believe in luck. I don't believe Liverpool won it because they were lucky. And you can see this. Like you would see if you look back 10 years, look at the last 10 years of Champions League, right? When team win, it's not that, oh, they didn't got past their group stage last year and now they won it. You see an incremental improvement, right? You go from getting knocked out in the round of 16 or quarterfinals to making it to the Champions League final, like Liverpool did against Real Madrid. And then the exact next year come and win it. So you see this trend of teams doing incrementally better and better and better until they reach the summit. And Juventus was, one can argue, was doing kind of the same thing. Had it not been for a completely okay goal by Alvaro Morata being disallowed as offside, and had it not been for a really stupid mistake by Patrice Evra, instead of kicking the ball out, trying to get past his markman, we have probably, one can say, we have featured in 3 back-to-back finals.
And also the fact that Pogba was fouled by Dani Alves, if I'm not mistaken, in the Champions League final against Barcelona, who was, I think that was supposed to be a PK.
Yeah. Now there are Champions League is, I'll keep saying this, is about episodes. It's about one tiny thing going one way or the other, because, and there's a reason to this, because it's the elite competition. So you've already weeded out teams who would just crash and burn, like Inter, and teams who can't just keep it up at the highest level. So once you get to the quarterfinals or semi and the final, the differences are not that much. Like, it's not like, and you saw it last year with PSG and Bayern. What separated them was one flash of brilliance by an ex-Juve man, Kingsley Coman. And it gets to that point. I mean, the Cardiff result didn't reflect that, right? But one can argue that it could have been different. Like, it was not. We didn't go into that game as underdogs. People tend to forget, but I think actually it was. I want to say it was Casemiro. It was either Marcelo or Casemiro who said that we actually loved the idea of being the underdog because it put a lot of pressure on Juventus. And it did. I mean, in a way, now a lot of people to this day deny what happened at halftime in the locker room, but I think it was very clear that Juventus was under a lot of mental pressure. So in Champions League, it's just tiny things that separates teams at the highest level of the game, and you just have to be at the top long enough to win it. So it was just very frustrating for me to read Juventus fans saying, "Oh no, we actually got lucky to be knocked out this round because we would have lost 8-0 to Bayern on aggregate," and that's simply not true.
You don't know that.
Yeah, and then if you, from a purely financial standpoint, you need to get to the next round to be able to buy the Locatellis and ours. From a social media standpoint, you need to be talked about. Once you're out of the Champions League, then you're out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. And
from a chance of winning it, you just have to keep digging and getting as deep as you can every year after year after year.
The fact is also that you have in the Champions League, you have something called the away goal. So you also play on the result. Once you score the away goal, it doesn't really matter what quality you have player by player. It's also about the team chemistry and how the players, how managers are setting up their team based on that away goal. So this is why those goals that we score away from home are so crucial. You can lose 1-3, but you still are
have a chance to go. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and it was for the exact same reason that I was telling my brother, who's also a big Juventus fan. Shout out to him. After it was, I think we played Lyon last year in December, right? And then COVID hit, and games got, I think, postponed for a few months. I told him that after losing 1-0, I told him that we're not going through. we're not going through with Lyon's style of play. Not scoring at their stadium is going to be very, very difficult, and that's exactly what happened. Like, we won, but then got eliminated just on the basis of not being able to score an away goal.
Yeah. Question for you, Daniel. Something completely different regarding Danilo. We've seen immense improvement with this guy this season. How much more stable he's become, much more consistent, so to speak. Danilo as CDM, which is very. When I read this, it almost sounds very strange because Danilo is not a CDM. He's right wing back who's supposed to be running down up the flank. But Pirlo was the first thing Pirlo did after starting as a Juve coach, head coach, was fielding Danilo in the middle of the defense, which was a masterstroke turned out to be. And now he's even tried him against, I think it was against Lazio.
Yeah,
CDM. What's up with that? And do you think it's basically because of we lack players, or do you think there is something that he considers in the next games, as Aditya asks?
So it's a very good question. I think I feel guilty, and I'm actually I think secretly trying to wash away my guilt by probably writing a piece at some point, heaping praise on Danilo, because I think he's an elite player. Last year when we signed him, I was understandably, like many Juventus fans, I was like, why are we letting João Cancelo leave? He's a magician. He's just he's one of those explosive players, right? He's one of those players that if you used to play 5v5 pickup games, you want on your side, right? Because it's just like you can just stay and watch him humiliate the opposition by the things that he does. But at the same time, in those same games, when you play 5 versus 5, you have these players. I don't know if you've played these games, but when I was growing up playing mostly those games, not 11 versus 11. And in those games, there are certain players who can do everything well enough. They can. I'm wondering if Danilo is as good as a goalkeeper as he is as a left back, honestly, because he strikes me as one of those players. Like he would they can go and be in the goal for a few minutes to give like a chance for the goalie to come forward and play and enjoy. Then they can play when you play in a 5 versus 5. People who don't have the experience, you have to do kind of a little bit of everything, right? Like you don't have the same roles of, you have 3 defenders and then you have one pure attacker. So you have to do all those things. And watching him play reminds me of those players, like a very, very complete player who can do all these things. Like, remember, he actually had a wonderful, or maybe a couple of wonderful long-range shot that resulted in goals. Really, really nice goals. He has shown to be more than capable of playing on the left or right back.
I think it was against Sassuolo last season away.
I'm pretty sure he also scored a goal this season. Maybe
probably,
I think in all those instances, you see this player who was, again, probably mocked by a lot of Juventus fans when he signed on last year, who, in retrospect, we should have known better. Like, you just don't walk your way into Real Madrid, Manchester City, and Juventus being an average player. Like, there are mechanisms in place at these clubs. There are millions of dollars at stake. So there's just no way that you would be an average player and win so much with so many big clubs in Europe. So this was kind of my half apology to Danilo, but I can totally see him in a Casemiro role, and this is precisely because of his qualities. Like, if you know how to contribute to defense, he's a natural defender, so he can do that. But at the same time, you're good with your feet, and you have a tactical intelligence of picking up the right passes. and the positional awareness that you usually know of a central midfielder, then you can totally play that role. I think he was Pirlo actually said after the Lazio game that they asked him like, how did you figure this out?
Yeah.
And he said, it just occurred to me yesterday, and someone made the joke of probably over a glass of wine.
Yeah, while playing PlayStation. Yeah.
So you can totally see that. I think it's now for the style of play, we may not need a purely central defensive midfielder, unless we decide to play like a 3-5-2 or a variation of. But I think it's just very reassuring that we have such a versatile player.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that comment from Pirlo, because that comment proves that he learns on the job and tries to improve the game and improve the team as we go along. He's not stuck in his ways. There is not a 4-3-3. There is not a 4-4-2. He tries to do what's best with the players that he's got, which, well, who would have thought Danilo playing as a CDM earlier this season? Now people thought of that, and it actually worked fine. And now people, of course, praising that master stroke. But we will see it in the next few games. We just have to remain to be seen what happens. And of course, as you said, now we have only one game in Coppa Italia, so basically only Serie A games to think of. So maybe there'll be limited options to experiment.
It would add a lot to a team to be able to play a different style of play and a different technical arrangement well, like do it well, because that just makes it incredibly difficult for opponents to read our game and anticipate us. So I think it should be recognized that's a positive for Pirlo.
Let's take a look at the Serie A situation right now, where we have. This is the lineup as per now. Grab this from whoscored.com. This is the situation right now. As you can see, guys, we have 25 games. The rest has 26. Of course, Sassuolo, Torino are much less, and Crotone actually most games played. But overall, we see that we are 10 points behind Inter, and we're supposed to play against Napoli on the 17th of March. That has now been changed to 7th of April from the...
is it?
Yes, from the request from both clubs, apparently. So, yeah. And this is how it looks like. I
was looking forward to March 17th.
Yeah, well...
Because I think that game will make this a lot more clear for people.
Well, we have to wait and see another month then, because we're playing in April. But first of all, let's take a look at the remaining schedule for the team. So this is Juve. We have, of course, Cagliari this Sunday, and then we have this Napoli game, which is, of course, postponed, which means we have 1 week of rest before Benevento, and then we have Torino, Genoa, pretty okay schedules there, and then Atalanta away. But it is the last 4 out of 5 games which troubles me. In any case, I mean, every game is a tough game for Juve, but we see Milan on the 9th of May, Sassuolo away, Inter at home on the 16th of May, Atalanta away once again. This is, of course, Coppa Italia final. And then Bologna. So this is the run-up for Juve. This is, of course, Inter. And we can see that they have a slightly lighter schedule, perhaps towards the end of the season, with us and Roma after each other. Yes, 4 days in between. And then, this is an interesting one. This is Milan. And they have a very tough schedule. Of course, they have Juve Milan on the 9th, Torino away, Cagliari at home, Atalanta away on the last game day, and also Sassuolo, 21st of April. Looking at all these schedules, Daniel, do you think has got the toughest one? And of course, main question is, do we have the chance of catching those guys?
No. I honestly don't think that's realistic. Inter has a very favorable schedule. Now, getting knocked out from Champions League all of a sudden made our schedule a lot less congested. But at the same time, the distance between two teams is just too much at this point. And Inter played all their big rivals, I think, absent us. So they have a lot better streak of games than we do. We still have to play them, Milan, Napoli. I think and Atalanta. The only top 6 that we have played is Roma. So it's going to be a very interesting run. Listen, realistically, I think this season should have been considered a transitional season. It was just not. It didn't make sense to me to say yes. We should win a treble on the first year that we changed 10 players and brought youngsters and gave the entire team to a rookie, and we had no preseason, and we had a bunch of long-term injuries. It's just not realistic. So when we started the season, my realistic goals was maybe win one trophy, be it Supercoppa or Coppa Italia, stay in the top 4, and then make a decent run in the Champions League. Now, the decent run in my mind was definitely getting past the round of 16. So in that sense, we didn't succeed. But from a table standpoint, I think we're actually in a fairly secure position. It would be very difficult to see Juventus getting out of top 4. And I just want to remind everyone that according to UEFA rules, it doesn't matter whether we end up 2nd or 4th in terms of the next year's group stages, because that is determined by UEFA coefficients. And ours is much higher. The reason that Inter got that group the past couple of years is because their coefficient is just crap. And they keep getting to the 4th tier or 3rd tier, whereas we would automatically go to the 2nd tier. So we would only be matched up with one of the champions, whoever that be, from Germany, Spain, England, and France. So I think it would be a kind of not a big deal even if we end up 3rd or 4th. But I think we will probably end up 2nd.
2nd, okay, yeah. Well, that could happen. So actually, the top 4, that should be the absolute objective now, and I don't see us well.
But what I was saying is, I think there is. So you can see that Roma and maybe Atalanta are somewhat close to us, but it would be very difficult to lose a 5-point lead against Napoli. So you're really realistically looking at one of. Both of Roma and Atalanta outperform us for us to get out of the top 4.
Well,
worse things has happened before. I know.
Yeah. It's very, very hard to predict anything with this Juve, man. Sorry, and it is what it is. I mean, we are in this position because we made this. We really struggled against Benevento. We didn't win against Verona both games, and of course the Fiorentina loss, and so on and so on. We have Crotone, of course. I mean, it is what it is. But moving into
we're in this position due to 3 games. The loss to Fiorentina, the draw, 93rd minute draw against Lazio,
Hmm.
and the draw against Crotone.
Hmm.
Those are the games. Had we not dropped, what is it? The 3 against Fiorentina and 4 against the other teams, we would have been on same points as Inter. It's again, this I just want to put this into perspective, that it was not like, oh, we lost so many games, we didn't like defend well. In fact, Juventus has the best defensive line of the entire table. It was just that we were going through a really, really rough patch by not having a lot of players available, and then not being able to figure things out with a new coach and all those things. Now, there's this, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's this rumor going around that Lazio might be sanctioned for playing COVID positive patients against us, and that they could potentially give us those 2 points. It would be very, very interesting to see whether that happens, because I think that's gonna change this table to a significant degree.
There we go. We hope so. We hope we see what happens. I mean, it's only still 10. Well, what it is? Let's see again.
It's 10 points with 1 game in hand.
No, I mean, how many games do we have
12
left?
games.
12, 13 games left, of course. So it's still a lot to play for, but the guys are focused. But as you said, I think it's just too much. The gap is too big.
It's not up to us. If
that is also
Inter doesn't drop points, it doesn't matter how focused we are. It doesn't matter if we play flawlessly. It doesn't matter if we score 100 goals. It's not in our hands. And I think actually both Morata and Pirlo said that in their interviews, that at this point, all we can do is to win every game. Now, the international break is coming up. So, and I think Inter most likely would have more players leaving for international duty. So some overtly optimistic fans think that that would be the beginning of a faltering Juve. A faltering Inter.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me just go through the chat and see what happens here. By the way, guys, smash a like on this one, of course, and support Daniel and his Twitter feed, even though he rarely talks about Juve. Mostly only medical stuff, which brings me to this question. USMLE Step 1. Are you familiar with this one?
Yes. I've taken this test almost 10 years ago. Well, I don't know what kind of tips I should give on Juve channel. Oh, I guess I would say this: don't follow Juve news nonstop when you're studying for this test. Because I didn't. I kind of like stepped away from Juventus for a while to be able to take this test.
What is this test exactly?
It is essentially a standardized test that every medical student should take in the United States to be able to qualify to graduate as a doctor. And also for international grads such as myself to be able to apply for residencies, which is getting trained as a specialty physician, like an emergency doctor or an internal medicine doctor, or a family doctor.
All right, which brings me, of course, this is a nice thread we have weaving here. Injuries, of course. We love to talk about them. We hate them, but we love to talk about them because then we have something to talk about. Demiral out 20 days. Now, I think you tweeted out that this is not related to his ACL injury, previous injury. But isn't this once you get the ACL? You talked about this last time, but if the people haven't watched that one, remind us. If you get the ACL injury and you recover, are you more injury prone?
Yeah.
This is basically your default. You are now more injury prone, and all sort of muscles and injuries might happen to you, whether it's related or not. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, so the best surgeons in the world, the best they can do is to put the ligament back on the bone, but it would never have the same strength as the natural ligament that it was not torn. Now, what athletes do is they really try to exercise and practice and train to the point that they would use other structures to kind of help this now weakened ligament. So you grow more muscle, and you would subject other tendons and ligaments to more pressure, so they can kind of become tighter and act as a support for this injured one. And that can, from time to time, as you can imagine, if you're trying to really overwork a muscle to compensate for an injury, just exposes that muscle to more injury. So it could be. I just don't know enough about the specifics. But what they were saying is, I think it was one of the calf muscles that he had stretched, and that usually it's not related to a purely ACL prior ACL injury.
Mm-hmm. There's a question here, which is actually quite interesting. At knockout stages, most Juve players get injured, which doesn't happen often with big clubs. I don't know. I don't know if that's exactly true, but what I think is the point here is as the season progresses and we get into the knockout stages, especially this season, which is crazy. Fixture list is very, very tight. It's very tight schedule. Mm-hmm. And this is why we get these injuries more and more often. But with Juve, especially this season, it has been exceptionally unlucky. Is there something? I remember many years ago, Daniel, there was talk of Vinovo, and people were complaining about the Vinovo
being a bad training ground.
Big bad training ground, yes, and the pitch was actually quite bad for training sessions. Right. Now they moved to Continassa, but I don't know if this is even related, or it's basically because the fixture list is just too tight.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I doubt Juventus even brought back the trainer that worked with Antonio Conte the first season that he was with Juventus, because they were thinking, maybe there's something that we're missing from a physical standpoint that predisposes these players to more injuries. But I don't think that was the case. I don't know. I think I don't think there's an actual correlation. Now, there are big databases, as I said the last time I was here, that they looked at every single injury that a team had in the top tier European football. And when you have big data, you can, of course, look at it from an objective standpoint and figure out if there is an actual correlation, or this is just a coincidence that when these teams get to the knockout stages to get injured. And as far as I know, that was not a concern for Juventus.
Death Clutch, I love the name. Overrated Demiral, underrated Romero, he says. Romero, of course, plays for Atalanta and looks like they will be buying him on permanent basis. Demiral and Romero, and I'll throw Rugani in there as well, because now he started playing consistently for Cagliari at least, and he even says that he's not thinking of returning to Juve just yet. He says that if I'm playing well, I might as well stay. So Demiral, Romero, and of course Rugani, because Rugani is only on loan per now. Overrated Demiral, underrated Romero. Do you agree?
I don't know about the latter part, but I think Demiral, especially after his few. So two things. One is I think he's very much injury prone, and I think with this latest bout of injury, you can kind of see it. Now, what happened was he wasn't playing consistently enough for us to know whether he actually gets injured or not, right? And even then, I think he had one more injury this season. And the other aspect is, I think I was listening to Guido Vaciago talking about him being an exceptional defender, or will become one. but I'm not sure if he is right now. I don't know if he's a player that Juventus can rely on as a starter. Now, the problem with Juventus is Chiellini should retire, or will most likely, hopefully, retire. Bonucci has a significant decline from his 2017 performances, and I'll be honest. I think I'm happy that Rugani is playing at Cagliari, and I think all the power to him. But I don't think he should come back to Juventus. He had his time, he had his chance. I don't think he would be able to. We gave him just too many chances, honestly. No. Now that leaves us with Matthijs de Ligt.
Watch him play greatly on Sunday. Watch him pocket Cristiano and Morata, because we're playing actually Cagliari on Sunday, which is quite ironic.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. But but Matthijs de Ligt, which is, I think, again, I've said it many times, I'll say it again, I think he's the future Ballon d'Or winner, and it's just a very exceptional talent. And we are most likely looking at promoting Radu Dragusin from the under-23 side to the senior team next year, because they're handing him a 5-year contract. I think his agent is Mino Raiola.
Yeah.
And I think that's appropriate, because that's no financial burden. He has been pretty consistent. He's only 18. And he has huge upside potential. But that leaves us with
19.
Say it again.
Let's see, he's 19.
19, I'm sorry. That leaves us with Matthijs de Ligt, injury-prone Demiral, Bonucci at 34, and Dragusin. And this cannot be the starting the roster going into next season. It just cannot be. So I think we would need at least one more starter signing, like not a backup, but someone who can actually start for Juventus. Rugani is not that player. I don't think Demiral is that player now. I think Christian Romero is.
Yeah, well, he won't be joining us, because he will be staying for Atalanta, unfortunately.
Well, we had really good relationship with Atalanta. We probably overpaid them for Kulusevski. There are all these kind of gentlemanly agreements between the management of these clubs. So I'm sure they can figure something out, especially if we put. Now, again, going back to my point that this is going to be very interesting, Mercado. I think we will either see no cash transfers, or if we do, it would be selling a player, raising funds, and immediately buying someone else. Which brings me to this. I think if there is an offer of 40 million or more for Demiral, we should immediately sell. We should not hesitate. Especially, there were all these rumors from Premier League that there are teams who are interested. So I would definitely sell him. Now, if you look at his stats comparing to Christian Romero, Romero played more Champions League games. He actually scored. His WhoScored.com score for average games is like 7 point something. It's just phenomenal. But he's also kind of a loose cannon, the same way that people think of Demiral, that he can get cards, he can give away penalties. But I still think, but the upside is he doesn't get injured as often. So I would make that swap if possible.
I needed to Google that one, because I wasn't sure if Dragusin's agent was Mino Raiola. I don't know if it's true. But
no, it is. I know.
It is
Raiola, yeah.
Okay. Because Transfermarkt, which is reliable, apparently not, because they have another agent.
Oh, really?
Yes, and it's very funny name. I'll highlight this one. It's Oscar Bentancur.
Ooh. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I think I've been reading all this talks of his extension. So I maybe transfer market is right. But the good news is they're saying that we'll hear a final word of his extension by Monday, which I think we should. Again, this is the general direction of Juventus. We're trying to see if we can get one or two players from our under 23 side coming into the main team, and at least shoulder some of the burden, not just come and train with the first team, but actually play in certain games.
Mm-hmm.
This is what is happening at Barcelona, right? They have promoted a lot of their youngsters, mainly out of necessity, because they also were going the way that we did, which was just splashing money on superstars year after year after year, and now they're in a $1 billion hole. So I think this is out of necessity, not having money around. They turn to their academy.
There was a question about Fagioli here, a bit further up. Can we expect him to play a bit more now, since we are out of the Champions League and we finally get some rotation?
I mean, I would sure hope so. I think one of the measures of Pirlo for me would be whether he would be courageous enough to try these players in the remaining part of the season. If we lose the Scudetto, which I think is, again, almost a certainty, it would not be because we played Fagioli 10 minutes in the last third of this season. So there's no downside. Like, it's not, he should play them, both him, Dragushin, and maybe perhaps Verbota, although a lot of people have PTSD from his game against Inter, but I still think you would have to play these youngsters and see if they can be a reliable, at least backup option for next season.
I want Fagioli to start against Cagliari. We're anyway too far from the Scudetto. Let's see if he's the hype. He's up to the hype created for him. Yeah, exactly what you said. Indeed. All right, we gotta finish up soon, but we haven't even mentioned the master of whatever it is, because he is suddenly turned up impressive last 2-3 games, and suddenly there may still be some future for Federico Bernardeschi at the club, or is it just not enough anyways? What's your take on I like to call him Nokia 3210. I don't know if you know this, Daniel, because he has the battery, he has the legs, but he's just not able to upgrade his software. He's just on the same level every time. And but he has the legs, he has the stamina.
Yeah. No, I think he's a great backup. I think I actually wrote a piece a few months ago about this, saying that I think Juventus should give him a contract extension. You can't buy anyone nearly as versatile as him with the money that we get from him. There's no way you can sell him for 20 million in this market. And he is capable of playing in a lot of positions, and he's willing to do that. He's not moaning about it. In fact, he's very happy when he comes on. I don't think he would ever become what we hoped him to be, which is the next Roberto Baggio coming from Fiorentina and tearing it apart at Juventus. But I think he's a very reliable player, and you can count on him in a lot of places. Now, remember, the person, if you believe the rumors, the person who vetoed his move was Andrea Pirlo. So if you trust Pirlo, you should trust him in giving Bernardeschi the time to get back on his feet, and use him as essentially kind of like a Swiss Army knife in the team. Like whatever position that you need to fill, he would be there. He can put in really good work rate, and from time to time, he can actually have a decent play.
Does he remind you of, well, for example, Padoin, who was very versatile, but without being actually good at anything?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think he's without disrespecting Padoin, King Padoin in any way. I think he was he's a really talented player. He can definitely dribble, and now some people think that he actually plays better when he simplifies his game. Like instead of going for the flashy, if he just does what makes more sense, he actually would perform better. But he has a lot of characteristics that can make him a top player. It's just that he knows that if he walks out of this team, he would not get to a better team. Right? He would not have a better position than what he has with Juventus at the moment. And we know that we already kind of amortized his transfer fee quite a bit. And on the books, he doesn't weigh down that much. His wages are not insane. And we can get him to sign an extension for probably the same salary that he has. So I think it just makes sense to me.
All right. Well, I think we are through this long list of things, and I think we got off.
Well, listen, I think for people who are really, really down, I have a good message. Last year when we got knocked out by Lyon, I just looked at the team and I just couldn't see any way out, right? I was looking at a team that was still playing with Matuidi, had Khedira on the books, had a washed up Higuain that did not want to move, and an injured Dybala. Like there was, and most importantly, there's just no vision, right? There was no, we played like this for 10 minutes. Maybe we can produce another 80 minutes of this and be great again. There was just no vision. It was really frustrating watching Juventus after the lockdowns. It was just very clear that Juventus will not kick into gear and will not produce anything if Dybala is not on the pitch. So back then, I was a lot more depressed than I am right now after the Champions League elimination, because I've seen what these players can do. I've seen it's not like they haven't been, as far as I think absent Fiorentina and Inter game, I haven't seen this team playing and I'm like thinking, this game can go on for another 180 minutes and we still won't score, right? And maybe the first leg of Porto game, although we did score, but we just couldn't get the desirable result out of it. So
doesn't that make it more frustrating because you see promise in this team and they still can deliver?
Not necessarily. Again, this is a very young team. This is a team in transition. You have to accept it, and it's not like we're not Liverpool, right? Liverpool is, I think, 8th in the league right now. And they are not transitioning, right? So there are a lot of upside to this in that we didn't really, again, I mean, now you have to count in the Porto game, but we really had 4 bad games the entire season. Those 4 games ending up different, like that wall not jumping up and Chesney being quicker, we would have a totally different conversation. So it's not like a long trend of poor game after game after game after game. This team has been able to respond to bad results by showing up the next game, but also being very tactically flexible in changing the lineup and approaching a game differently. So to me, it's not as frustrating as last year. Again, last year I was just. I think last year after the first leg against Lyon, we should have sacked Sarri.
There was talk about it actually. I think that's when they decided not to renew his.
Well, they were not courageous enough to pull the trigger.
No.
It was very clear. It was, for anyone who was watching, it was very clear that this team is not going to get better, right? It was very clear that had it not been for Cristiano Ronaldo and Dybala just making magic game after game after game after game, we would have won nothing. We lost the Supercopa. We lost the Copa final. We easily could have lost the Serie A had Inter and Lazio showed up, or Milan didn't have such a terrible first half of the season. Because if you count their points, the second half of the season they should have been top of the table. So it was just a lot of. He was just very, very lucky. We kind of act as a Make-A-Wish Foundation for him in granting him his wish of winning a Scudetto. We should not have done that. We should have just even if it was a plan, we should have just have someone taking care of the team for the rest of the season and prep Pirlo for the job. But we just I guess we're Juventus and we're not in the habit of sacking coaches in the middle of the season.
And that's also what makes it frustrating as well, that we are Juventus, we are used to winning, and we have won the last 9 seasons, and we've been successful. And when we stop being successful, somewhere down the line, somewhere in the future, we'll always stop. Now, nothing lasts forever. And now it seems that this is the end of the road for Juve, Scudetto-wise. And that it is frustrating, but as you say, and it's a good point, it's that the future is looking, well, bright, promising, let's say. Of course, many tweaks can still be made, but it is work in progress. And if we are gonna sack a coach every season, we're basically restarting that project every season as well. So with Pirlo, in my personal opinion, I think Pirlo should stay for at least another season, and then we'll see. Because then he gets the tools that he needs. Hopefully, COVID will ease up, and we'll finally get back the revenue that we crave for.
Yeah.
And then we'll see. Yes.
No, 100%. I agree. I think even if you're not on the Pirlo hype train, I think you would give him the season, the next season. And if things go horribly wrong, again, you have the option of bringing in someone halfway through. It's not every day that you get a team that really plays nicely from moment to moment, right? They're again, it was so. I think I think it was the English commentator on the return game of Porto was saying that I think I'm watching a different game between the first half and the second half. We just didn't show up the first half.
Yeah.
Now this is partly on Pirlo, because I think he should be able to instill the correct mentality from the get-go, not for us to get scored on and then people wake up and start playing. But at the same time, it shows you that everything is there. Everything is there from a talent standpoint, from individual players, and from an organizational standpoint. It's just that this team is not in the habit of being in the first gear from the first minute. And that comes around with time. There's unfortunately, there's no magical way.
There we go. Okay, last question, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Aditya, I love the questions from Aditya. It's always on point and perfectly well, time wise as well. Because we haven't talked about Alexander, which is true. Can we please talk about Alexander? Well, we can. I can give you an example. Alexandro looked like to be a lost player last season and big portions of this season. However, as soon as he started in the central defense role, a CB role basically, he showed that he still has something to offer. So where would you put him then if everybody's healthy? I mean, is he actually good enough to start a left back anymore?
I mean, I think I may be biased because I really like him. Maybe my viewpoint is colored by that, but I think he's a really, really decent player. He's very much of the mentality that I would sacrifice for the team. Remember when we moved Mario Mandzukic to the left, kind of like an inverted left winger position, he had to stay back, and Allegri gave him a lot of defensive responsibilities, and he adapted because despite the fact that he still produced a lot of assists from his crosses, he was very, very much involved with the defensive phase. And then when our defense started faltering, Chiellini getting injured for the entire season, Bonucci not being there, and all those things, he was the constant. He was the person who was trying to keep this backline together. He's 30. Juventus just offered him a contract extension. I don't think he have a really high market value. And honestly, I think while he's being very quiet on the pitch, and I think Pirlo actually criticized him for that, he's still a very decent player. Now, I don't know if moving him to a center back position is the right answer, because he does a lot of things defensively really well. What he really struggled with is tall, physical strikers who get good service in the box. I can't tell you how many times I remember him essentially giving a leg up to the striker who is going above his head and scoring a header. So he really is not as well equipped to defend those kind of situations. But short of that, he can tackle. He's very safe in his tackling, unlike a certain Turkish international. So he rarely gives away penalties. He is very tactically intelligent in that he knows when to commit a foul and when to just mark the player. So he does a lot of things defensively well. But I don't know in a center back position. If I had to choose, if I had to move a player to the left back and keep one in the center, I would put Danilo in the middle, because he's really good in the air.
Yeah, I think he's taller as well, if I'm not mistaken.
He is taller. Yeah.
Sandro doesn't have the legs, Rohit says. If he moves forward, he's not able to track back, and crossing is below par as well.
There is truth to that. If you look at but I would say this: that if you look at how Cristiano plays on the left flank, it requires a lot from player who plays behind him. It just requires a lot of work rate. You just have to go up and down, and try to, because a lot of times, and you notice this, a lot of times Sandro makes a run and Cristiano decides to go in the box, which is just spent energy for nothing, right? He doesn't even draw a player. It's not like, because once the ball is at the feet of Cristiano Ronaldo, the opposition defense is just forgets about everyone else. They all go, they don't even care to cover Sandro, which makes sense. If you have to put, if you look at the XG of Sandro having the ball on the side versus Cristiano Ronaldo having the ball in the box, there's just no competition. So I understand why they're doing that, but that comes at the cost of lots of runs that are useless. And that takes something out of his output.
What do you think of his crosses then?
I think if I'm not mistaken, he actually just assisted a goal the game before Porto. No,
He assisted to Cristiano's goal
Yeah.
against Crotone, if I'm not mistaken.
Cristiano, yeah, against Crotone. So he still does that. His output is certainly not as phenomenal as his second season, I think. But I still think he's a decent crosser. Now, people look at no, I respect both of these players, but people look at Cuadrado's, and because he has 10 assists, and they immediately say, "Oh, look at this player." But look at the stats that was published after the Porto game. Juventus had 62 crosses into the box. Cuadrado was responsible for 33 of them. So that's, if you think about it, that comes to an assist rate of 3%. So he's successful in making an assist from a cross only 1 out of 33 times. So it depends on how many times. Now, Sandro is not as, I guess, reckless or courageous, whichever one you want to interpret this, as Cuadrado in just sending crosses after crosses after crosses, because he has Cristiano Ronaldo. He has that player next to him, so he decides to pass the ball more often. But I don't think his crosses are terrible. I have to look into more deeper detailed numbers, stats. But just to me, it doesn't look like he's a terrible crosser.
The thought just popped into my mind that we have. When you mentioned those numbers, I kind of started thinking about the tactics from Porto as well. Yeah. They allowed us to make those crosses, and knowing that, well, Cuadrado crossing, how much harm can that do as long as we mark the players in the box?
Mm-hmm.
So you can have 1,000 crosses or whatever, but one of them being an assist. I mean, it's a pretty good defensive job, I'd say.
Yeah, the way that they, especially after their penalty, the way that they lined up in essentially, effectively, it was a 6-3-1. It just made it impossible to go through the middle of the pitch, which I want to see more. I think I just hate to see Juventus seeing a low block and pass the ball to Cuadrado. I think that's just. Teams know this. Teams take this route specifically knowing that if we don't see a way forward, we started side passing, and then eventually the ball ends up with Cuadrado, and then he decides to do his signature, throw the ball a few yards front, and then try to make a run for it and maybe draw a foul. That's not how you score goals. So it was kind of predictable. They expected us to do that. And if you look at it, we didn't get anywhere, especially the first half after they scored, with long crosses. We really started clicking when we had the ball at the feet of Chiesa, Morata, and Rabiot. That was when we started looking really dangerous, and it was a brief period of time between our first goal and I think our second, actually not second goal, the almost goal that Chiesa missed, the header that he got past the goalkeeper but failed to put the ball inside the goal. He in that period of time. The entire back line of Porto was just dissolved. It was in shambles. I think Conceição actually did make a substitution, especially after Taremi got expelled, and they kind of like patched it up. But in those few minutes, I was starting to see what this team actually can do. It was just relentless.
Well. There we go. So we have a next game coming up on Sunday, which is against Cagliari. Do I dare for your prediction real quick?
Well, I was right there the last time you asked me.
Yes, you was, and it's it was. I actually copied that one. I also did 1-1 draw.
1-1.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna win. I think we will probably win by 2 or 3 goals margin, maybe like a 3-1.
Ooh. Poor Rugani then.
Now, it could be that he would pocket Cristiano Ronaldo and all the goals are coming from like Chiesa, or I don't know, maybe Danilo scores, but
well, there we go. Yeah. Maybe. Listen, Daniel, it's been great fun. I love having you on the show.
It was a great pleasure.
Sure. Stay safe and keep those close to you safe as well.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for watching this one. We got to wrap it up. And Brad, I just have to... Brad apparently just joined this stream because apparently he never seen me energetic. Well, Brad, you'll be happy to know.
You should watch him before the game.
You'll be happy to know that you will be a watch along during this game, the Sunday game against Cagliari. There will be a pre-match build-up. There will be a watch along. There will be post-match reactions after the game. So Brad and all the others, please join on that one. It'll be great fun. You have been a bit more energetic. Well, my friend, take a look at my previous videos and fina, as we say. Guys, it's been great fun. Thank you so much for watching this one. Smash the like on this video and subscribe to this channel. Daniel, I wish you good Friday still. You have 6 hours behind me, I think. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So good Friday and weekend as well.
Thank you.
And, we'll see you all.
Thank you, everyone. Forza Juve.